All right, you ready? Here we go. 3, 2, 1. What's up, everyone? How are we doing today? My name is Amp. Thank you so much for tuning in to 60 Minute Suspension. My man right there, Tdubb Tyler Williams. Tdubb.
Yo, what up, everybody? Welcome to 60 Minute Suspension. We got some dope topics, as usual, per usual. Amp and Tdubb, we are here to bring you some topics for the evening. So, stay with us. We got Amp. You want to break us down on some of the stuff we got tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. First, thank you guys so much for tuning in to 60 Minute Suspension. We talk all things sports related to mostly stories, and we like to talk about, like the stuff that ESPN doesn't really talk about. So a lot of Jaguar stuff, but also we like to talk about other sports things as well. Today's docket, we do have the overview of Pete Rose. I was actually listening to a podcast this morning, and this guy's story is incredible, so I want to share it with you and then maybe talk about why or what his ramifications of what he did also affected the sports landscape at all levels. Also, we're going to talk about Rihanna. This is sports, but we're talking about Rihanna. And finally, we are going to give you a feel-good story, and it's a really good one, so make sure you stay at the end to hear that one. As always, follow us, like, subscribe. We got YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Instagram, all that stuff. All you got to do is just search Amplified Network. Check us out. We have tons of other shows that we always do and we produce here in studio. Funny to Informing, The Theater Goers, and then also 60 Minute Suspension. And we're always looking for new shows also, so if you have any ideas, just direct message me on Amplified Network. All right, T-Dubs. Today, we're going to open up today's docket with the only Jalen Ramsey, questionably the best corner in the league right now. He's not playing. Is he hurt?
Did you say questionably?
So he is the best corner in the league.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
I mean, he'll say it to you himself. He's the best cornerback in the league, and his work, pretty much speaks for itself.
Right.
He's the best cornerback in the league. I don't know about this season so much because he's only played 3 games, but you can't take the title away from him yet. He deserves all the praise. He deserves all the money. The Jags have the kind of the leverage in this situation, obviously. So, word on the street though is he's back at practice today, and we like to hear that. I definitely like to hear that. If you don't know what's going on with Jalen Ramsey, I'm sure all of you guys do. I'm sure most of you do. Obviously, he's demanded a trade from the Jags. As of after the Houston Texans game, pretty much right after that, there seemed to be some front office stuff that came about between maybe him and Tom Coughlin that maybe had hindered their relationship. So much that Jalen pretty much immediately demanded a trade. After that, things kind of progressed forward. He played with the Jags on the Titans game, on the Thursday night game, he had a great performance. I mean, he let a deep ball happen on him, but, that's going to happen in the NFL. And then after that, he had a couple just back-to-back things like, we had a baby. Of course, that's pretty cool. You got to kind of love that.
Was it a boy or girl?
I think it was a girl. He has 2 girls. Obviously, I don't know the names because I'm not that deep into his life, but congratulations to him for sure. And then he had the flu, which people kind of questioned. Like, did he really have the flu?
Yeah, I remember that.
And then he had the back issues, which has kept him out for, I think, 2 games now. I mean,
right. And let me time out real quick at that point. So he has back issues. He flies to Houston and takes a group photo with Deshaun Watson, and there was someone else in the picture. Well, what's up with that?
That was actually his agent in the picture in the middle, and I think that's Deshaun Watson's agent as well. I forgot his name. I think it's like Matthew something. But, I mean, what is it? That's no big deal. To me, that's no big deal. And the Jags would never, ever, ever trade the best cornerback within the division. So, if that happens, it's going to happen, a couple years down the line. That would suck if he signs for, the Titans where he's looked at talking about before, or if he signs with the Texans and teaming up with Nuke and Deshaun Watson and, J.J. Watt and the rest of the Texans defense, it'd be stellar. So that would be really bad for the Jags. that'd be really bad for fans of the Jags.
Well, okay, so we were texting earlier today, and you were telling me that basically the Jags can hold him hostage. I'm going to use that word in this case. They can hold him hostage for 3 years, essentially is what you were saying, because they could franchise tag him. He still has a year or two left on his contract. So after that, they can franchise tag him and keep him on the contract that they have now if he chooses to hold out or sit out, and he can't go anywhere for the next 3 years. So you and I kind of had a debate on this over the phone. Can you describe more of what that means?
I mean, I think because of the situation that's set up, the Jags would have to be a complete dick of an organization to do this, But at the same rate, Jalen Ramsey has kind of been acting like a dick, and we don't really know what the Jags have done to Jalen Ramsey, So the Jags could be just already being a dick. So there's a bunch of dicks flying around, but who knows what it really is. But the point of that is the Jags could potentially, of course, they have the 5th-year option, so they have Jalen Ramsey for the rest of this season, and as well as the 2020 season. So they could, after that, they could potentially franchise tag him, in which they have the availability to do that for 2 more years as well. However, obviously, the pay does increase dramatically with every year, and by the 3rd franchise tag, the player, no matter what position, automatically gets quarterback money. So, I don't think that's a problem. I don't think money is the problem, obviously. The problem is, Jalen wants out. So
yeah, so that brings me to this, which you and I had a debate over on the phone, and I thought this was a great topic for today. If you guys are watching, please chime in. Please give us what you guys consider your point of view. We're going to basically kind of break this down because I thought this was a good way to kind of go through this segment here. And so Tdubb has his point of view, and I have mine. So if you're a Jaguars organization, what do you do with Jalen Ramsey? The rumor mill has it that the Jaguars have been offered 2 first-round picks for the Jaguars. Wow. Right. 2 first-round picks for Jalen Ramsey. We don't know who the team was that sent that offer, obviously. And again, it's a rumor mill, so we don't even know if it's true or not.
They say it was the Chargers. And the reason it was
Chargers.
Well, and go ahead and then I'll chime in after you're done.
So, yeah, so there you go. The Chargers possibly have offered the Jaguars 2 first-round picks. So where I'm going with this is Tyler said that he was saying that we can basically hold Jalen hostage if it goes to that level for 3 years. And so from Tyler's point of view, he was saying, I'd rather hold on to him. And in my point of view, for the next 3 years, I was saying, might as well trade him. He wants to go. He wants to get out of here. Get the two first round picks and just load up. I mean, get better, So Tyler, give us your point of view because mine is different from yours.
So I would tend to agree with that. If this was any other player, if this was Laramie Tunsil, he's gone. 2 first-round picks, sure. That's what happened, There was, of course, Kenny Stills was involved, but at the time, people thought Kenny Stills was trash, but he's actually doing pretty well with the Texans. But really, those 2 first-round picks were for Tunsil. I would, with any other player, I would do it. But Jalen Ramsey, I think, is a unique player, and I wouldn't do it. And I would hate to see him, to have to play him. And that's what the Jags are scared about. And the Jags also think that they have a chance to be competitive still. I mean, they're favored against the New Orleans Saints this weekend.
Yeah.
They're 1-point favorite against the New Orleans Saints. They're not a dog. They're favored. So they have a chance in almost every game they played. They had a chance in the last game they played. They had a chance against Houston. They were an inch away from winning the game in Houston. Like a literal inch away from winning the game in Houston. So
let's look at it from
Jags.
Yeah, sorry, finish.
So the Jags have so they don't want to give away Jalen to a contender. So if you're going to be the Chargers and offer 2 first-round picks for Jalen, well, the Chargers are viewed as a deep playoff team this year, a potential deep playoff team. What does that mean? Late rounds. What does that mean? They're probably going to have another year of late rounds. 2 late round first-round picks, to me, just doesn't cut it for Jalen Ramsey at all. There was also the rumor of Baltimore. They offered a first-round pick as well as Hayden Hurst, and he's from Jacksonville. So that was, maybe a little bonus. But Hayden Hurst, while we are needy of a tight end, that definitely isn't the thing. Isn't the thing,
right?
I would say so. But yeah, so go. So tell me your point of view. What would you do? What would you do if you're the Jazz?
You made really good points. So, like, I didn't really think about it from that perspective because
I need to play this guy.
So you didn't like you made a really good point, and I didn't think about it from that perspective. Talking about contenders, guys going deep into the playoffs. I mean, the Chargers, even the Ravens could make a run for a wild card or even an actual spot in the playoffs. And again, that would lead to a lower draft pick. So from that perspective, you do make a really good point. My only worry would be that Jalen legitimately loses interest. Like he has said multiple times before, he hates losing. He can't stand losing. And we see it in his play. We see it in his emotional like stance on the sidelines. The way that he acts when we lose, it's a little bit childish. And I get it. He's a passionate player. That's just who he is. That's his style. But also at the same time, it's distracting. And it's hurting the locker room because he is considered, like you were saying, the best corner in the league. As the best corner of the league, whether you want it or not, you're going to have attention. You're going to have that limelight of like, dude, this guy could possibly be a leader in the locker room. But if my leader is crying every time we lose, that's not a good leader. That's not a good person that I really want in that locker room. Now, again, his skill, the way he plays, he's the best. He really is. His size, you cannot duplicate this player. You cannot replace him. Like taking 2 first-round picks is a gamble versus having something that you know is legit and is going to be legit for the next at least 5 or 6 years. Okay, yeah. So I understand all that viewpoint, but my only rebuttal to all this is you're kind of doing all this on a whim of hoping that he wants to play and that he wants to keep playing. And that I think that as an owner and as a GM, you really got to take in consideration because up to this point, he has really verbally voiced his opinion of how much he doesn't like the organization. I wouldn't say the team; it's more so the organization. And he
loves his players.
And he didn't handle last season very well. Like, and then at the end of the last season, he did not handle that well. He didn't like it. So I get it. I understand you want to win and everything, but I want a player that if you're the best in the league, I'm sorry, man, it's just by default that leadership falls on your shoulders. Like it has there's nothing you can do about it. Like the guys in the locker room and the people around you and the city, it's just something that happens to you, and you have to just own up and man up and take it. And he hasn't proven that to me as a player. And so ultimately, what I'm trying to say is I think by week 8 is your trade deadline. By week 8, if he is not performing and if he's still vocal and very, very vocal about like, look, man, I can't do this. I can't handle Tom. I can't handle Doug. Then the Jags either have one or two choices. You get rid of Doug and Tom or one of them, and you kind of just, you know what, we're moving on from that old school mindset. Or you really do take in consideration some of these offers because Jalen, you can get a lot for Jalen. And I mean, at the end of the day, you kind of can't overlook that. I mean, Jalen's not really going to grow up. I don't think Jalen's ever going to change from the player he is. So you have to, as a GM, decide, okay, yes, he is one of the best in the league right now, but he is a massive distraction, like a massive distraction. And if
yeah, I agree. I mean, I agree with all that, but a couple things. Like I think that money talks. Money always talks to some degree. B, or 2, whatever I'm doing here, winning cures all. He wants to win. You know, and I want a cornerback on my team, a dog that just hates losing more than they like winning. And yeah, he wants to win, but you could tell he just hates losing more than he likes winning. Yeah. So he could have an average season and, you know, not necessarily be content, but just be better off than losing, you know. But anyways, I want that player on my team. But all you have to do, and you want that player to eventually be a leader on your team, all you have to do is get him to buy into the system. And whether that takes getting rid of Tom Coughlin,
Wash,
it might be, Wash, maybe Todd Wash and Tom Coughlin. He verbally has said that he doesn't dislike Doug Marrone despite his sideline spat with him that one time. You don't know really the truth on all these statements that, you know, the players let out. You know, it could just be for a team thing. I do believe he's there to play with his teammates. I do believe he likes playing with his current teammates. You know, Yannick, Miles Jack. I believe he still likes being a tandem with AJ Bouye. And of course Calais and the rest of the defense. He likes playing with them. It's the truth. He wants to play with them. He didn't say he didn't like the city of Jacksonville. That was kind of rumors that got out. He loves Jacksonville, but at the same time, Jacksonville has to treat him better, I think. And it's one of those, man. Each of them is almost like the old Mexican standoff kind of thing.
It really is. It really is. When you read the stories about this, it's kind of like, okay, who said what now, or who's doing what now? And to kind of give you real quick, Jadon, Bazile for life, man. See you. Which, by the way, I heard they're getting sued, but we'll move on from that. Real quick, Shad Khan did chime in yesterday, and he said this, and I quote, "Well, I think," in parentheses, Jalen Ramsey is going to be playing this week, and hopefully you'll tune in to the New Orleans Saints game. Little cheap plug there. But I think that you got to balance what's good for the team and what the individual wishes may be. I met with Ramsey a couple days ago, had a heart-to-heart, and I think we'll be able to come to whatever makes sense for all, end quote. So pretty vague. He said that they had a heart-to-heart. It sounds like they're trying to squash something. Obviously, the organization's not going to, blurt that out until everything's kind of settled. But at least he's talking to the owner. That's great. And Shad Khan has gone out to say that he's willing to pay Ramsey what he wants. I mean, he has said that, and it's very clear that he doesn't want to get rid of him. The owner does not want to get rid of him. So at the end of the day, it sounds like Khan wants to keep Jalen. So that's great. I don't want to see Jalen go. I really don't. My only reason from my viewpoint is seeing long term of this. If Jalen decides to sit out, and what Tyler was saying with, we can basically hold him hostage for as long as we want. He can sit out as long as he wants, but we control your future, so you can't go anywhere. So that was my only intake from that. Ultimately, if Jalen wants to keep playing and play at a high level and not necessarily be a distraction, like he's always going to be a distraction, but not be a distraction that detriments the team. That would be the bigger thing. Because everything that Jalen has done up to this point hasn't really hurt the team. Everything he's ever done or emotionally been, it's always been him. It's been towards him, about him. So he's never done anything or said anything that was to hurt the team morale or hurt. He kind of speaks for the team in a sense like that through his emotions. It seems like Khan really wants to get something done with him. So realistically, you would think that he will be a Jaguar for the long future. So,
yeah, I would agree. I mean, I would hope. A lot of people are definitely in the negative on that one, and a lot of people have completely moved on, and a lot of people don't even want to hear us talking about this right now. But I think it's a hot topic in Jacksonville. I think it's something that we may be talking about until at least October 29th, and then we'll have to reapproach it next season, So if we start winning, who knows what the offseason may bring for Jalen Ramsey if he's still around.
Right. Yeah.
We'll keep our eyes on the trade wire, that's for sure.
Moving on to our next story today, Rihanna. Now, bear with us. Rihanna is a pop star, obviously, but she was signed up to do the halftime show, or that was what the rumor was it going to be Rihanna, Maroon 5, and I believe there was going to be someone else. Cardi B was possibly in consideration. Not Maroon 5, I'm sorry. I
think it was Maroon 5, or it was
I think that was last year. This year is Jennifer Lopez and Shakira have agreed to do it this year.
Yeah.
And then Rihanna was going to be a part of that. But she had an interview with Vogue magazine, and I quote, this is what she says, and I quote, "I couldn't dare do that. For what? Who gains from that? Not my people. I just couldn't be a sellout. I couldn't be an enabler. There's things within that organization that I do not agree with at all, and I was not about to go and be a service to them in any way," end quote. Now, it's really interesting to see what she says and how she words things, because if you guys have been keeping up with the NFL on an entertainment level, Jay-Z is now basically their head of marketing. He essentially promotes all of their music. He's going to oversee all of their music performers. He's going to take care of their marketing from a different point of view. And it's a massive deal. I don't have the deal right in front of me, but it's huge. And so he's basically set up this whole situation with the NFL where he's going to bring in the artist and hook them up so they don't have to worry about it and oversee that. Now, this is the same Jay-Z that also said, like a year or two before, like, I want nothing to do with the NFL. Colin Kaepernick, I got your back. I would never leave you. You know, you're my boy. I'm kind of paraphrasing a lot of what he said because I don't have what he said in front of me. But he basically, what Rihanna said, sold out in a sense. Now, some people could see it a different way. Some people could say he's trying to bridge a gap. He's trying to create, he's trying to break down walls. He's trying to create communication lines within the NFL and try and lower, try and eliminate these wrong mentalities people have towards the NFL and how they handle certain players, aka Colin Kaepernick. Rihanna standing with Colin Kaepernick. What's your thoughts on this, Tyler? What do you think? Is she taking this too far? Like, how do you feel?
I mean, I don't really think she's taking it too far. I mean, it's easy for a lot of entertainers, performers, they're going to do, most people are going to try to give their art to something they believe in or something that at least they believe does well in the world. Most people will try to do that. So I could see if she's like, no, I don't agree with these morals and these values and, or I don't agree with how the league did not take action, with what Colin Kaepernick was trying to stand for, or so, those type of things, and pretty much are blackballing him in this moment. You can never really get upset at somebody for doing something they believe in, or doing something out of an act of something they believe in. So if she wants to not perform at the halftime show, I got nothing against her. I got nothing for her. I think good for her for standing up for her beliefs. And, that's, I mean, it is kind of funny now that Jay-Z is the guy there, in the NFL, head of marketing or whatnot. In entertainment, I think it's just kind of funny. You'd think that these things would automatically fall in hand, but maybe people believe in this movement more than you think, So,
So, something to keep your eye on with this whole situation with, Rihanna and just this whole Jay-Z thing. I mean, I'm sure this won't be the end. I'm sure we'll see more artists kind of take stands like Rihanna did. And it's an interesting way of looking at things. Jay-Z could be that gap, could be that bridge that encourages artists like Rihanna to rethink their ideas and be like, look, they're trying to change, they're trying to be different. That's the one thing I will say in defense for the NFL is that if they're open to change and if they're open to not being as discriminative as they are against Colin Kaepernick right now, which by the way, they still are. He hasn't played since 2016. He hasn't been offered any opportunities.
Right. I saw today that like his agent said they had been reaching out to all 32 teams and all 32 teams showed little to no interest.
It's terrible, man.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's crazy. I think he still has talent, especially with all the back. He can come in and be a backup.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And I think he'll do it at this point.
I mean,
I think he'll be
nothing against Teddy Bridgewater, but I think Colin could give Teddy a run for his money. To be fair, Teddy did just have a 4 touchdown game.
Teddy
yeah. But yeah, the Redskins could use some help. So anyways, that's an interesting story. Keep an eye out for that one. So moving on. So today, like I was saying earlier, I was listening to a podcast today and they were talking about the story of Pete Rose. If you don't know who Pete Rose is, all of this that I have in front of me is on Wikipedia. You're more than welcome to always search it yourself. This is just kind of give me an overview. But there's a little couple things that I heard in the podcast that I'm not sure a lot of people knew. So, Pete Rose, if you don't know who he is, he basically played Major League Baseball from 1963 to 1986. Incredible. And then he left the game in 1986, or no, he left the game somewhere in between that time, but he would ultimately end up being a manager and baseball player between 1984 to 1989. Incredible. He's considered a switch hitter. Tyler, do you know what that is? I don't know what a switch hitter is.
Yeah, it's pretty much somebody who can bat left and right hand.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, which is incredibly difficult for your normal person.
So yeah, he's a switch hitter. So this is what he leads in the MLB. Okay, the major league stats as of today. This man leads in hits. He is the all-time leader in hits. That means when the ball he actually hits the ball and makes base. That's what's considered a hit in baseball. So 4,256 hits. Tyler, can you describe that number real quick?
Well, I mean, that number is pretty huge. A lot of people are like, oh, yeah, 4,000, whatever, because you try to compare it to like football and, your average player could reach 4,000 yards in their normal, career. But 4,000 hits is something spectacular. 3,000 is a huge goal for most players. So to do it, how much was it at?
4,256 times.
Yeah, 3,000 is a huge goal for players. Huge goal for players in the Major League Baseball. So to put it in perspective, he did that much.
Incredible. So, he ended up playing 3,562 games. He went to bat 14,053 times. He had the most singles. A single is when you just get to the first base, like you hit the ball and you only make it to first base. He made the single 3,215 times, and outs. And outs, aka when an umpire rules you out or whatever. He has over 10,328 outs of overall time. That gives you context of how many games he actually played. So all those numbers that I just said, he's the leader in all of those categories. So hits, games played, at bats, and singles and outs. That's 5 things he leads in the MLB. Tyler, is that not an accomplishment in itself?
Oh, it's a major accomplishment. It's a huge accomplishment, but it's a team sport no matter what. And I know there's the talk of like being in the Hall of Fame and like he deserves it based off of the stats, of course. And like, for God's sakes, what did he really do? Do we know that?
Well, that's what we're gonna get to.
Yeah, go ahead and get there. I don't want to.
No, you're good. So last thing I'll go over, he won 3 World Series, 3 batting titles, 1 Most Valuable Player, 2 Golden Gloves. He was Rookie of the Year in his rookie year, and he made 17 All-Star appearances. He played 5 different positions.
It's so crazy. It's crazy.
It's incredible.
The best.
So ultimately, what did Pete Rose do? Maybe some of you have heard of this name. Maybe some of you have been like, oh, I've heard that name once or twice before. This man gambled. He had a terrible gambling habit. Like, he gambled all through college, through his pro days, and even now, today, I think he is actually, I don't think he does it anymore. He's actually 78 years old, which, by the way, this man's still alive. So he's still very much alive. He's doing autographs. And also a little tidbit here. Supposedly, if you're able to catch him doing autographs, you can ask him, request him, say, Pete, can you just sign your name and say, I'm sorry for gambling, or I'm sorry, or some little note that apologizes to him not being in the Hall of Fame or him gambling during the MLB. He'll actually write like a little I'm sorry note to you. Like, it's kind of sad, but I don't know. It's an interesting fact.
Well, it's also it's just kind of desperate,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, not that he doesn't deserve it, but at the same time, when you think about Pete Rose as a person, some of the things he did were kind of shitty things,
Right.
Like gambling is like probably one of the gambling, and while being a manager is probably one of the least shitty things that he did, as a human, probably, I know he, in an All-Star game, he like barreled through a guy to make the winning run, but the All-Star game is so meaningless, and like the catcher, it was a bad throw. The throw didn't even come close to the catcher. No need for Pete Rose to barrel into him, and then he completely knocked him out, and like the guy had a separated shoulder, and he never reached the same average or power hitting that he ever had again. So like he's done things like that. I think there's like he's done like he's had like tax evasion problems, for not filing taxes on like I think like autographs that he received money for. So like most athletes don't even sell their autographs. You know what I'm saying? And he's like selling his autograph.
So. Yeah. So I mean, still trying to make that money, But no, you brought up a really good point. Make sure you YouTube this. Pete Rose, he made one of the first ever charges at home plate. So he was trying to steal third, I believe, and when he was doing it, the catcher had the ball. So what you have to do as a catcher is tag the runner so they can't make the base. So Pete, instead of just slowing down and taking the tag, he did something that no one's really ever done in Major League Baseball before that time. He sped up. And he went faster and faster at home plate. And the catcher really didn't know what to do. And so they both kind of just do like this like shoulder tackle run in. And Pete just kind of like bumps right into him. And the catcher has to hold on to the ball. He dislodges the ball from the catcher and tags home place, and it's a run. Like he gets the point. It's incredible. And this is something that's kind of never been done before. I'm sure you can YouTube this. I don't have the name of the catcher that he was going against, but you can just search Pete Rose steals home plate or something, and it'll show you like how he just knocks this ball out of this guy's hand. It's incredible. But yeah.
I don't think it's the same thing I was talking about, but that is. I think there's two different stories that I got confused. I was like, no, that doesn't sound like what I was just saying. But talking about something else.
Sorry. So moving on to what he actually did, right? So this was a tad bit that I found in the podcast when I was listening to it, and they were talking about how the first time anyone really outside of his circle. So Pete Rose, when he gambled, he would either use an alias, like a different name, or he would just kind of like do it nonchalantly. Like he would meet up with these guys. They would know that it's Pete Rose. He would just put his bet in and then walk away without any record of like his name on a book or anything. Like they would put him down as like a secret code, like number 44 or number 17 or something. And that would be his code so that if anyone ever did find the books or anything, they couldn't trace it back to Pete. Pete would bet on everything. It wouldn't just be baseball. Like he bet on all the sports. He bet on everything and anything. And he got pretty bad in debt at one point. But one of the earliest confirmations that the MLB started to kind of get a whiff. I wouldn't even say the MLB got a whiff. Someone outside of the MLB, aka a reporter, was talking to Pete Rose's mom. And all he was doing an autobiography of Pete Rose. Like he was just kind of just doing like a hometown piece of Pete. He wanted to just kind of, write a fun story. I mean, Pete was an awesome guy. Pete retired twice from the MLB, and this was his first time that he retired. So the guy wanted to just write a normal piece on him. He's talking to his mom, and his mom slips up and says, "Oh my gosh, Pete lost so much money in that Cincinnati game." And when the reporter looked at her, he was like, "What do you mean he lost a lot of money?" And she's like, "Oh, Pete bet on that game and lost." Like she straight up said it, not even knowing the rules in MLB, not knowing that you can't bet in the MLB or whatever. And yeah, right. And at the time, I'm pretty sure she was a little bit older at this point in the story. So, she's not thinking straight or clearly. So she kind of snitched on her son without knowing it. But the reporter, he was a local reporter from where Pete was. So we knew without any proof or any he's just going off the whim of what this old lady's saying. Like, he knows if he writes this story or says what she says verbatim, he's going to get crucified. Like, he needed proof. He needed, legit sources, and he didn't really follow up on it. He just thought Pete was just kind of, gambling with his friends or, those little side bets that you do, at home. Like, if me and Tyler were who can do the most push-ups? Okay, $10, whatever. You know what I mean? That's what he thought of, so he kind of pushed it off, and no one thought about it again until the MLB, basically what happened, this new guy, the commissioner, So the commissioner of MLB at the time knew that there were gambling issues and other issues going on amongst the league at the time. We're talking like late 80s, right? This is like around the late 80s. And he knew that there was a lot of issues going on with like people cheating, just a lot of stuff going on with the game that was hurting the game at the time. And gambling was one of those issues. So he ends up hiring this FBI. I don't have the guy's name in front of me, but he ends up hiring this old FBI intelligence guy to kind of be the head of his security for the league. Well, rumors had been kind of swirling around the league for a while that Pete Rose is a gambler, but no one had proof that he was gambling on MLB games. So everyone knew that he would gamble, but no one knew that he was gambling on the games. So in February 1989, Rose is formally questioned. He is formally questioned by the commissioner of baseball, Pete Uberoth, and NL president. This is it. This is his name. Bart Gemayet. Bart Gemayet was the new guy that they hired, and obviously Rose comes into the meeting and he denies everything. He's like, "No, you guys are crazy. I would never." At this time, the MLB owners, at this time, there was an investigation leading up to this meeting where they already had proof of him doing it. So they were kind of talking to Pete like, "Look, man, we already know that you're doing it. Like, we don't need you to admit guilt, or we don't need you to say that you did or didn't do it. We know you're doing it. So we're kind of giving you an opportunity here to just say, I'm sorry, my bad, to give you context of how important this is. This came at the heels of him beating the all-time record. Like, he beats the all-time record of all the hits. That was like his whole goal, why he played so long into his career, was to ultimately, be the all-time leading hit leader. But at the end of this meeting, the guys are talking to him and they're like, "Look, man, if you can't own up to this, we're gonna have to ban you. Like, you're getting banned." And Pete Rose stood his ground and was like, "No, you don't have anything on me. You have no proof of this. I didn't do anything wrong. I bet and I gamble, but I'd never bet on MLB." So ultimately, 3 days after. On August 24th, 1989, Rose voluntarily accepted a permanent place on baseball's ineligible list. Basically, Rose accepted there was a factual reason for the ban. In return, Major League Baseball agreed to make no formal findings with regards to gambling allegations. According to the baseball rules, Rose could apply to reinstate within 1 year, but yeah. So basically what happened was through the first meeting, Rose denied everything. But when they finally had all the proof that they needed to, look, Rose, no matter what you say, you're getting banned. Rose ultimately made a deal with the league back later in August, saying, "Look, I will basically say, yeah, I might have done something. I'm not going to apologize for it, but I'm only doing this so you can reinstate me within a year." But the new security guy, Bart Gimes, and I quote, says, "There's absolutely no deal for reinstatement. This is exactly what we did not agree to. This is what we did not agree to in terms of fixed numbers of years." So ultimately, Rose was trying to basically say, "I did it," only so that he can be reinstated in the MLB. What's so important about this? Why he wants to be reinstated? Obviously, he's retired at this point, but the reason he wants to be a part of it is so he can go to the Hall of Fame. That's ultimately what he wants to be. He wants to be remembered. So that was back in 1989. So back in 1989, he's banned. He's banned for life from MLB. We fast forward to 2019, and Rose has been barred from entering Great American Ballpark since it opened in 2003, despite it being played on a streetway named after him. Other than presentations on the field, he still has to pay admission fees to watch his children and future grandchildren play. So, long story short, so how this works, he can go to certain events if MLB allows it, and if he has nothing to do with actual contact of players and organizations.
Right.
So like he could go to a Hall of Fame ceremony,
right?
But he has to be like in the general admission area. He can go to actual baseball games, but then again, like I was just saying, he has to pay for the ticket. His son, he actually has a son who played in the majors. And for a while there, he was never allowed to go in the locker room and say, "Hey, son, I'm proud of you. Great game. Congratulations." He's never been allowed to do that. He's been banned from the locker room, so he can't do that.
He's literally just a regular human being at this point.
Right. So back in 2004, he wrote an autobiography, My Prison Without Bars. If you get a chance to read it, it's a book, and a lot in that book is what the podcast is based off of. They basically read his book, and then they talk about the facts that are in it. In that book, it talks about the time when his mom basically snitched on him. It talks about a lot of intense stories where he almost gets caught. He even talks about games. So he's never come out and said that he's bet against himself. Like, he's never said that. He's never said that he's ever bet against a game that he played in or against his team. He's never said that. So it's not proven that he didn't. It's not proven that he didn't do that. So that brings into question, how many of these losing games did he have? Was it really him? Did he have anything to do with it? Because remember, in the back half of his life or back half of his career, he was a manager. Like, he managed a team. And so he was a player and manager, and a guy who can gamble can control a lot of that outcome.
That's a lot of control.
So
you can swing a lot of money that way.
So, yeah. I stand corrected, man. Wow, I need to read more. In March 2007, in an interview with the Dan Patrick Show, Rose said, and I quote, this is through Wikipedia, and I quote, "I bet on my team every night. I didn't bet on my team 4 nights a week. I bet on my team to win every night because I love my team. I believed in my team." I quote, "I did everything in my power every night to win that game." End quote. So he came out and he said that, but also that doesn't guarantee that they didn't do it. No offense, but dude.
But if you think about it, if you're the Cincinnati Reds and you're good, and you bet on yourself every night throughout the season, you make a lot of money.
Right. Absolutely. But again, you can't do that. You're part of the organization. You can't do that.
Right.
He ended up coming out. I don't have the actual thing here in front of me. He did come out on the Today Show. I believe this was around 2004 as well. He came out on a segment on the Today Show where they did a cover piece on him, and he basically apologized. Like, this was the first time ever that he came out and he publicly apologized for what he did. He accepted fault, and he said, "I'm sorry." But a lot of people think the only reason he's ever come out and said this stuff is so he can get back in the MLB. Not because he means it, not because he feels bad for what he did, only so he can get back into it so he can become a Hall of Famer. Long story short, up to you how you want to look at Pete Rose. Implications on his actions, we don't hear about this much anymore. We don't hear about these issues with gambling anymore amongst players. Is it a big issue? I don't know. With fantasy football out there now, there's absolutely no way you can tell who's betting and who's not. I mean, there's really no way. There's so many secret ways of hiding your bets and disguising yourselves. And there's tons of players that have this issue. Betting can be a serious issue mentally for a lot of people. So I'm not going to downplay it and say, anyone can just quit. Obviously they can't, or they would stop betting, I think long term for the sport and as a whole, for MLB, I think it's a travesty not to let him in the Hall of Fame. This man has so many freaking records. He's a household name amongst players. He's not one of those players where it's like he should not be named. He didn't go out and do steroids like half of these other guys.
Right.
I mean, he was just a freaking nature athlete, a man ahead of his time, and he capitalized on it. He broke all the records, and no one can catch him. Like, no one can catch him. He's still first in all of this stuff. So, I don't know, man. It's an interesting story. Tyler, how do you feel about Pete?
I mean, I'll keep it short and sweet. I think ultimately he should be in the Hall of Fame. I don't know whether he's a liar. I don't know if he tells the truth. I don't know. I've seen a lot of reports on him just being a straight up liar. So I don't really know how he truly feels. So I don't want to give my whole heart to it. But like statistics, I'm a big statistics person. Put it in the Hall of Fame if it happened in real life, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's how I kind of feel about it.
Yeah.
Even you can't really erase history with all the PED stuff. Those guys are going to go in the Hall of Fame with an asterisk. Do the same thing for Pete Rose. Give him an asterisk. I'm sure he'll appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, he's 78 now. He's definitely outlived his punishment, honestly. I think he's outlived his punishment. If you can't prove that he bet against himself or bet against his team, then you don't really have an argument. I mean, if you have proof that he did, then yeah, okay. If he forced losses on his team, I think that's ultimately why the MLB is so harsh on him, is because they can't prove that he did it or didn't do it. So that's why they're so harsh on him. But, dude, that's the thing. You can't prove it. So you kind of have to go off the presumption that he's innocent, because right. There is no proof out there, because, he didn't like audibly say that he tried to make his team lose. I mean, it's not like he can force the other team to do better or worse, so right. At the end of the day, I think you let him in, I think you release this ban, and just the dude's outlived his punishment, man. He lived and breathed baseball. He still does today. He's still signing autographs. So, I mean, dude, while the man's alive, let him enjoy it. Let him be a part of history. That's Agreed. What I think. All right. So, Tdubbs, this is your moment.
You're stalling, bro. You've been stalling for a little bit.
No, that was a really good story. Shut up. Tdubbs. So,
oh, yeah.
I'll lay it out for you because you earned it. Tdubbs, last week, we knew that we were going to play against each other. And so, in fantasy football. And I was talking shit. I was talking mad shit. And I was saying, dude, I made all these moves. And I was making all this shit. And all of it failed. And Tdubbs.
And I was humble. I wasn't sure about my wide receiver moves. Wasn't sure if DJ Shark was going to pay off. Wasn't 100% sure on that. But he did. He came through. DJ Shark. Do. Anyways, yeah, I appreciate you laying that out there, Amp. You don't have to say anything anymore. I'll go ahead and take it from here. So, I had the biggest blowout last week in all of what's our league name, Amp? Justice League.
You told me not to talk anymore.
Oh, in all of Justice League, I had the biggest blowout. 47 points. Amp went down. He went down. It was pretty quick too. It wasn't even like much of a fight. So, got anything to say, yeah? Yeah, thank you. Sir. So, moral of the story is short. I'm gonna go ahead and shut up before I start losing every game for the rest of the season. That's what happened to me.
I will say this:
I beat Amp, and he has a good team, and his team will bounce back. I'm a little worried about Mitch's team, though, to be truthful, because Mitch, I think, is on a little bit of a win streak since that back-to-back like shellacking he got from us, right? I hit him and then you hit him pretty hard. And
well, he's got Christian McCaffrey. That's my biggest fear. And then Aaron Jones too. He has Aaron Jones also.
Yeah, Aaron Jones is pretty good this year.
So those two, and then Julian Edelman too. Jesus, yeah, that's rough.
So I'm a little worried about Mitch's team. Pelvic Fury might be catching a hyper thrust right now, but I feel like, and also I'm a little bit worried about my scoring. Like if you look at the top, I'm like the second team or whatever, but I should be like number 5. I'm like number 5 in scoring, I think. Number 6, which isn't terrible, but like it's not the greatest. That's obvious. The top two scoring are like close to 50 to 80 points better than me, I think.
I will say this in my defense. Mike Thomas scored higher than all of your players. That's all I was going to say. That's all I was going to say. That's it. That's all I got.
And you still lost by 47.
I shot myself in the foot. I started Jacoby. I shouldn't have started Jacoby. I should have stuck with Dak. I totally messed up on that, but it still wouldn't have mattered. He still would have beat me.
Dak had a shit. Didn't Dak have they were Thursday Night Football last week, weren't they?
Yeah, but
didn't he? He only scored 10 points.
He got like 27.
Oh, that's not bad.
It's better than Jacoby's 20 or whatever Jacoby. I think Jacoby had like 11.
Yeah.
Anyways,
who do you play this week?
What's that guy's name? Colonel Sanchez, Sundraws.
I might be making a trade with him. As you might have noticed, I updated my trade block.
I saw
today.
that.
Yeah.
What do you want for DJ Chalk?
I told you he's not available. He's only unavailable.
Damn it. That's who I want.
I don't know if you read that or not, but it said unavailable.
Tyler, Julio Jones is on the chopping blocks.
Yeah, so is Odell Beckham on my team.
Yeah, you want to do straight up trade?
I might be interested.
No, I'm not doing that. Fuck that. Anyways, we have a feel-good story real quick. 2 minutes. Tyler, tell us about D'Angelo Williams.
D'Angelo Williams. This man is like a baller, shot caller, 20-inch rims on the Impaler type dude. He is a guy who's always his mother had breast cancer and she passed away due to breast cancer. This guy in the NFL was once was once fined for having pink dreads outside of the month of October and wearing pink stuff because he wanted to raise awareness. I just think shit like that the NFL does really puts a bad taste in my mouth and your mouth as well. But we're talking about a feel-good story.
Yeah.
Today I read that D'Angelo Williams, formerly of the Carolina Panthers, as well as he had some time with the Pittsburgh Steelers, in which he contributed to playoff teams with them. He bought 500 mammograms for women so that they could be checked. And I think that's an amazing thing. I think that's something that is missing in this world. Fight for the things that you really want to see change. And and that he's doing that, which is pretty cool. And he's helping out people, which is pretty cool. And people don't expect that of athletes. People expect athletes to be assholes and douchebags and care about themselves. But
that's too cold for your sensitive teeth.
Sorry, that's the old Yahoo.
That's too cold for your sensitive teeth.
So, anyways, just on time.
To give you
D'Angelo Williams.
Yeah. To give you context of what Tyler's talking about, D'Angelo Williams' foundation, I just had to pull up the story real quick. His foundation has covered over 500 mammograms since 2014. No, 2015. Since 2015, his organization has covered over 500 mammograms. And so they were talking about the accomplishment of that, and then also explaining that they're not stopping. So it's over 500 mammograms at this point, but they're going to continue this process and continue to help women all across America, possibly the world, with this terrible disease of breast cancer. And I got one word for you, breast cancer. So that's all I got to say.
That wasn't a man. That was a finger.
Yeah, he saw it. So,
yeah, well.
Anyways, thank you guys.
Our listeners probably won't see that.
No, I hope their audio is on. That'd be awkward. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is 60-Minute Suspension. My name's Amp. That is
Tdubb. Yo. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for stopping by. If you just joined us for the first time, make sure to go and follow us over at anywhere on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch. I think we got Twitter, Instagram. You can find us on Spotify, a couple other podcast sources as well. Search Amplified. Search 60-Minute Suspension. Amplified Network is what we're completely under. And we'll probably do a better job breaking that down. But as far as myself personally, you can find me on theturfsports.com. I'm the head NFL writer for them. So please head on over there, read some of my stuff. Just did a piece on Gardner Minshew. Going to be talking about the trade deadline coming up and what players might be shipped off to different teams in new faces and new places. So
sweet.
TheTurfSports.com, Tyler Williams.
Tyler Williams. And like he was saying, my name's Amp. Make sure you follow Amplified Network on all your social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitch, and there's one more. Facebook, right? I said Facebook. Anyways.
You said, but fine.
Check us out. Anyways, you'll find us. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will talk to you guys later.
Later.
Sweet.